Today we're reviewing a script called Every Noodle Type Explained in 5 Minutes. It was submitted by the creator of the channel Food Discover.
Right, and the research in it is genuinely impressive.
It's packed with fantastic detail. I mean, the 1972 hostage crisis involving cup noodles? Great stuff.
Totally.
But the goal of this critique is to help lift it from, a list of facts into a real story. We need to stop seeing it as a listicle and start seeing it as a narrative about noodles.
I think that's a perfect way to put it, because honestly, reading it feels a bit like walking into a library after an earthquake.
Okay.
No, I mean, all the information is there. It's good information, but it's just all over the floor. Right now, the script treats each noodle as its own little island.
You finish one, get on a boat, and sail to a totally different part of the world for the next one.
Exactly. And you never look back. It stops the audience from seeing how all these things are connected.
Yeah, it's a bit of a zigzag. It goes from ramen in Japan to lo mein in China. Then suddenly we're in Italy with spaghetti.
And then back to Asia for rice noodles, and then, much later, you circle all the way back to Japan for cup noodles.
It's just whiplash. And that separation, it doesn't just hurt the geography, it hurts the story.
It kills the momentum. The best example is the ramen timeline. You get the history of ramen from 1910, which is great context. But then cup noodles, which is the direct sequel to that story, doesn't show up for another 4 or 5 segments.
By the time you get there, you've completely forgotten the setup from 1910.
You've diluted the most powerful story in the whole piece.
Which is the story of Momofuku Ando?
Exactly. He's the protagonist of the modern noodle, and right now his story is just chopped up and scattered everywhere.
Okay, so let's talk about fixing that. If we're going to reorganize this into, say, families or lineages, where do we start with the Ando arc?
I think you have to group them by narrative necessity. So just imagine taking the ramen segment and the cup noodle segment and putting them right next to each other.
Back to back.
Back to back. All of a sudden, you have a biography. You start in 1910, you set the scene. Then you move to post-war Osaka in 1958.
Which the script mentions, the hunger, the people lining up for soup.
That's your inciting incident. And you follow that immediately with his invention of instant ramen.
And you don't stop there.
Right. You keep the camera on him. You go from the invention in 58 to the cup noodle in 71. And then you hit them with that amazing detail about the 1972 hostage crisis.
Where the police eating cup noodles on TV made the product famous.
That's the climax of a story. And then you can finish with the final evolution. Space ramen in 2005.
See, that is so much more powerful. It's not 2 encyclopedia entries anymore. It's a single, compelling journey.
From post-war starvation to zero gravity.
And if you stick a recipe for spaghetti in the middle of that, you kill the entire emotional arc.
Completely. And you can use that same logic for the ingredients too. Right now, wheat and rice noodles are all mixed up.
So you'd suggest grouping all the wheat-based ones first?
I would. Do a block with ramen, udon, lo mein, spaghetti. Establish wheat as the dominant force in the noodle world.
Which creates a perfect transition, doesn't it?
It really does. Once you've set up wheat as the king, you can pivot. You can ask, but what happens when you don't have wheat or you live somewhere it can't grow?
And that leads you right into rice noodles and glass noodles as this kind of innovation of necessity.
Precisely.
That also helps with the Italian section. Right now, spaghetti, vermicelli, fettuccine, they're all over the map.
And if you group them, you can have a real conversation about Italian food culture. You can contrast the different legends.
Like the Marco Polo myth.
Right. The script mentions that he supposedly brought pasta from China, which is, largely a myth. And then you have fettuccine Alfredo,
which has a very specific documented origin. Alfredo di Lelio, Rome, 1908.
Put those two stories side by side. One is folklore, one is documented history. It shows the creator understands how we mythologize food. It just builds so much authority.
I love that. It becomes about how we remember noodles, not just what they are. So, okay, fix one is structural. Group by ingredient and consolidate the Ando and Italian arcs. Now let's talk about a second layer. The script is fantastic with the what. It gives us facts, but it's really missing the why.
This is the difference between trivia and knowledge. The script is full of these great little tidbits.
Like udon makers kneading dough with their
great visual.
Or ramen being yellow, but the script just stops there. It never explains why these things happen.
It leaves you with a quirky fact, but no real understanding. The ramen section is probably the clearest example. It says, ramen uses an alkaline mineral water called kansu, which gives it a yellow color and springy texture.
Which is true, but it feels incomplete.
It's incomplete because it's missing the mechanism. Why does alkaline water do that? This is a perfect spot for just a tiny bit of food science.
You don't need a whole lecture?
Not at all. Just a half sentence. Explain that the alkalinity tightens the gluten structure in the wheat. And that tightening is what gives ramen its classic snap.
And that connects directly to the udon thing.
Exactly. This is why the grouping we talked about is so important. If you've just explained the science of kansui for ramen, then when you get to udon, which doesn't use it,
You can explain why the dough is so different.
and why they have to knead it with their feet. It's not a weird tradition. It's a physical requirement to develop gluten in that kind of dough without chemical help.
Okay, so suddenly foot kneading isn't just a funny image, it's applied physics.
It makes the content feel so much more authoritative. The viewer walks away feeling smarter.
I see the same issue with the vermicelli section. It notes the name means little worms and exists in both Italian and Asian traditions.
Which is a great observation. But so what? Is it just a coincidence?
Right.
The script needs to bridge that gap. Explain that it's about the shape, the process of extrusion. It even mentions that Neapolitan pasta makers were called vermicellari.
That's a great detail.
Use it. It tells the viewer that humans on opposite sides of the world looked at a strand of dough and had the exact same thought. It unifies the whole concept.
And what about the glass noodle? The script has that beautiful line about them being edible crystal.
It's lovely language, but again, why are they crystal? Another perfect science hook.
Explain the difference between starch and gluten.
Right. Wheat noodles are opaque because of the protein network, but glass noodles, made from mung bean or sweet potato, are almost pure starch. When starch gelatinizes on its own, it becomes transparent.
That's a total light bulb moment for a viewer, like, oh, that's what's happening in the pot.
Exactly. It explains the magic.
Okay, let's move on to our third big point. We've done structure, we've done science. Let's talk about the theme, the soul of the script.
Migration.
It's everywhere.
It's the ghost in the machine for this entire script. Almost every single noodle mentioned is the result of migration or colonialism or trade.
But the script treats them like isolated facts. X came from Y. It misses the forest for the trees.
So the suggestion is to frame the whole thing around the noodle as a traveler.
Yes, make that the explicit theme. The noodle is a migrant. Look at pho.
Okay.
The script mentions French colonialism, the introduction of beef. It even notes the French dish pot au fait as a possible origin for the name.
But it's just a list of influences.
Right. We need to frame it as a marriage or maybe a collision. It's the French obsession with clear beef broth, meeting the Chinese rice noodle tradition, the fun, all happening on Vietnamese soil.
So pho isn't just a soup.
It's the edible history of occupation and adaptation. It becomes so much more poignant when you frame it that way.
That idea of adaptation, that takes us right back to fettuccine alfredo. The script has that great point about it being famous in Hollywood, but basically ignored in Italy.
The fake, authentic paradox. It's so interesting.
I mean, you have that, and you also have the BBC Spaghetti Harvest April Fool's joke from '57.
Which showed that people in Britain literally thought pasta grew on trees.
And then you have this real Roman dish that Romans don't care about, but Americans adopted because movie stars brought it home.
You have to connect that to lo mein. The script mentions how different Americanized lo mein is with that thick, sweet sauce.
It's the exact same story. The noodle changes when it crosses a border. It adapts, showing the viewer that authenticity is this fluid, changing thing. That makes the script so much more sophisticated.
I think my favorite example of this in the whole script is the origin of rice noodles.
Oh, I love this story. So the script says northern Chinese invaders moved south during the Qin dynasty. They're wheat eaters.
Right, dumplings, buns.
But they've conquered the south, which is rice country. And the script says resourceful southern cooks invented rice noodles.
Okay.
But let's dig into the why. They invented them because the conquerors were homesick. They were craving the texture of their wheat noodles, but all they had was rice.
So they ground up the rice to try and mimic the shape and feel of what they missed.
It's culinary homesickness. It's innovation driven by a craving for home. If you tell it that way, the viewer connects on an emotional level. It's not just a recipe. It's a story about missing your mom's cooking.
That gives the history a human motivation. It's fantastic. Okay, this brings us to our last point, the bookend, the opening and the closing. Right now, it's a bit of a cold start and a very abrupt stop. It just kicks off with ramen and it ends. Well, it just ends with the ingredients for fettuccine alfredo.
It falls right off a cliff. There's no so what. It leaves the viewer feeling like, oh, I guess it's over. We need to give them a sense of completion.
The perfect theme for that is actually already in the script. It's just buried.
The longevity noodles.
Yes. In the lo mein section, it says long noodles symbolize longevity in Chinese culture.
It's such a powerful, universal idea. Why is that stuck in the middle? That should be the finale.
So after the fettuccine Alfredo story, we just zoom out?
Completely. Pull the camera all the way back. Remind the viewer that we've gone from the Han Dynasty to the International Space Station. We've seen noodles made of wheat, rice, mung bean.
But across all that time and all those cultures,
the noodle represents the same fundamental wish, a wish for long life, for sustenance, for continuity.
that ties it all together so well. And I saw you also highlighted a crisis motif in your notes.
It's the other side of that same coin. The noodle represents a wish for long life, often because it was born from the threat of death.
I hadn't really put that together until you laid it out.
I mean, think about it. Ramen comes from post-war starvation. Rice noodles, invasion and displacement. Fettuccine, invented to help a wife recover from childbirth. Cup noodles became famous during a hostage crisis.
Wow.
It's right there in the script's own research. These are comfort foods in the deepest, most literal sense. They are survival foods. They are what we eat when times are hard.
So if you use that to wrap up the idea that the noodle is a survivor, just like the people who make it,
It gives the whole piece an emotional resonance that a list of ingredients just can't touch.
it elevates everything. Okay, let's recap the action plan here. This is a pretty big restructure, but all the raw materials are fantastic.
They're all there.
First, reorganize. Create those families. Group wheat, then rice. Most importantly, build the Ando arc. Put his whole story together from 1910 to 1971 to tell his biography, and group the Italian pasta.
Right. Narrative flow over a random list.
Second, deepen the why. Use the trivia to teach the science. Explain the gluten in ramen and the starch in glass noodles.
Give them the mechanics, make them feel smart.
Third, thread the theme of migration. Make the noodle as a traveler the backbone of the script. Show how cultures collide to create these dishes.
Adaptation is the story.
And finally, fix the ending. Don't end on a recipe. Move that longevity symbolism to the conclusion and use it to tie everything together with the theme of survival.
It's the mic drop moment that the script is missing right now.
We really want to thank the listener for sending this in. The level of research, the specific dates, the names like vermicelli, the BBC broadcast, these are absolute gems.
The hard work of finding the facts is done. This is just about arranging the furniture to make the house feel like a home. I really want to see this version of the script.
We'd love for you to rework it with these narrative ideas in mind and submit it back to us. We really want to see Momofuku Ando's story get the spotlight it deserves.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's it for this critique. Now go forth and edit.